Hi and welcome to Creatively Montessori. Thank you for joining me today. There is a short of this doing the lesson presentation, so you're welcome to look at my playlist to see that. I wanted to go a little bit more in depth for anyone who is interested in more information about this material. This is a practical life material. This one is intended for early childhood, 3 to 6 year old classroom because it uses these small silver beads. So again, if you had larger medium in there, you could use this in the toddler environment. These are actually condiment cups, like you would put ketchup or something like that in the middle restaurant, but I like that they were metal and I found these beads that make this great sound. This I'm going to put out for my January work. I like doing things related to snow and winter in January, but I also like doing things in silver just because that seems to go well with it. This is pouring work, and there are a few different types of pouring works. It comes before spooning because pouring is easier in this case because there's no spout and no handle. So this I would probably put on the shelf before spooning work. And so I'm going to present the lesson to you as I would for a child. This material is on the shelf. I walk over to the shelf and I would say, this is pouring work. I would pick it up, your thumbs go on top, your hands go on the bottom, you pull it in towards yourself, and if you have a child who's kind of unsteady, what I tell them to do is to pull it in and put this part close to their belly button. I tell them to tilt it up slightly because then it will at least lean against them. As they get more competent, they can just carry it like this. We put it down on the table, pull out the chair, sit down on the chair, push the chair in. This is pouring work. I stand up, push in my chair, pick up the material, put it back on the shelf where I got it from. I look at the child and say, this is pouring work. I always invite the child to do the material unless there's some issue with, I did the lesson presentation 2 minutes before we had to clean up for lunch or something. And I usually say, would you like to do the work? And would you like to do this work? And if they answer with a no, then they're not going to do the work right then, which most children don't say that in my experience. But the way I learned over the years in working in a primary classroom was to say, would you like to do this pouring work or would you like to do this pouring work? And there would be maybe 2 or 3 other pouring works next to it so that they know this is a pouring work, and as long as there's no spout and no handle, they've already been introduced to that. The reason that I used my fingers and I highlighted that there was no spout was that when I do other presentations where there is a spout, I'm going to highlight that there is a spout. And then when there's a handle, we'll highlight there's a handle because you hold that differently than you do this. When they pour, you do want them to pour with 2 hands because when they have snack or lunch and they're using a small pitcher to pour their water or their milk, you want them to use 2 hands because that is what helps them control the pour. You actually, and lots of adults do this, you do not hold this cup and pour like this. This cup, the only time I would do that is if this cup is unstable. So for example, if you were using a small paper cup, which I wouldn't have in a primary classroom, but you hold it like this and you pour, and you teach them this never touches that, and that's how you pour. These beads will spill. That's part of the interest for the child, right? And so that's one of the reasons that you have a tray, is that when it spills, it's contained on the tray and the child puts it back. If the child chooses to spill it all over the floor, which will happen, you then let the child pick it up. And yes, it might take them 20 minutes to pick it up, and that is okay. They're still working on their sense of order, that all of the beads have to go back in the cup. They're still working on their sense of concentration, that they have to get every single bead picked up. They're still working on their sense of order, that if they're not on the tray anymore, they're somewhere else. In my early childhood classroom, I frequently had older friends almost immediately go and want to help this younger friend who had spilled. And again, you want that sense of community, whether it's at home or in your classroom. And so although I didn't discourage that, the goal is that this young child, this 3-year-old or toddler, whatever age child it is, that they understand that if they spill something, that then they're going to clean it up. And so I would allow or invite the child who had spilled to choose one of those other children to help them. And then again, you work on that sense of cooperation, that we're like a family and that we're all in this together and we help each other. But it wasn't that 3-year-old that had spilled it would sit back and say, oh yeah, somebody else, clean up my material. So that's one of the many ways that you build cooperation and community within your Montessori classroom. So this is pouring work with no spout and no handle. I hope that you liked our video. You liked my video today, so please give me a thumbs up, and I would love for you to subscribe to Creatively Montessori. I present lessons almost daily. In addition to lessons, I do book recommendations and also product recommendations. So you can check out my playlist for practical life materials, my playlist for items I would have out in my class during the winter months, and I hope to see you back soon.